Welcome back, people, to the QGIS course. Professor Piyush here. If you are new and joining us first time, please follow the playlist to learn this course from the beginning. And also, you can download the exercise data, the files which I'm using here. You can download them and practice with me. So in this video, I'm going to tell you about labels in QGIS. If you remember, previously we have discussed all about different types of layers, symbols, right, which we have done, how to add these kind of symbols, layers, markers, and so many other elements of symbology. But now we'll talk about labels today and how the labels can be so helpful and to understand our map better. They can be added to a map to show any kind of information about an object. Any vector layer can have labels associated with it. These labels just rely on the attribute data of the layer of their content. In previous videos, I have also told you what is an attribute table, how to access the table. If you're not aware of the attribute table and how to access them, please follow that video and then come back again. So I'll be showing you different demos and we'll be creating some good looking labels of layers. Let's start. So if you don't have a layer toolbar, you can see here at the top, this is the layer toolbar. I bring that down. This is the labels, sorry, not layers, label toolbar. If you don't have it, then you need to go to View, Toolbars, and make sure the label toolbar box is checked, right? So that is one way to access the label toolbar. And of course, by default, as I told you before also, you can just double click any layer and bring all the properties of that layer in one single dialog. So let's say I want to go for places layer here, and you can see I can access the labels from here as well, right? And if I go to the rollout, I will see there are 4 options: single labels, rule-based labeling, blocking. We'll cover them, but for now I will just explain you with the basic elementary single labels. And when I click it, you can see all set of options have arrived. Like I can set the text, formatting, buffer, mask. I will show you what does it actually these options do. Or you can just, to make it more faster, I will just keep it to default and apply and go back. I can just bring the label option here only. Make sure the layer which you want to see the labels is on or selected, highlighted, and click the labels, and it will bring you a label dialog on your side, which becomes more easy and faster. So you can see the live update here in the map. It doesn't disturb like the previous one. It takes up the whole canvas screen, so becomes a little obstructive. But here it's easy. You can see, just match the symbols. This is the labels. I'm in that label rollout. I will select, same options are there as well, single labels, and I get the same set of options, right? So you can see text, formatting. When you bring your mouse, hover your mouse, then it will tell you what does these tabs do actually, which was not the case in the previous one. So the moment I have bring the single labels, I don't have to apply all the time. Automatically, you see the names are reflecting here, right? Already I have given them labels, buffers and masking and text sizes. That's why you can see text like this. I will show you how to do this, right? So first, let's start with the text option. So if I select this, you can see there is the font which I have selected, the style which is italic, right? The size, from here I can change the size. Let's say I want it to be 15 or 10. So size basically depends on what scale you are printing in, right? Let's say you are printing for this scale. So you need to set your size accordingly, which size you want text to be. Is it 15? Is it 10? Is it 5? Right? Based on that, you can decide. And let me just zoom in. Okay. Now, and then you can, of course, there are options to change the color, the opacity and all. You can play with this and see what happens. Next, we will see what formatting does. So if I click this tab, you can see I can have an option to wrap on character. I will tell you what does it do actually. And the spacing between the letters, I can check them. I can change the orientation. I can change the blend mode and all. But this is a very basic way of text formatting. I'm sure you guys know how to do that. I will just tell you an interesting way how can you add this kind of white mask which you see here. Let me just increase the size first. Okay, so you need to go to buffer, right? In the buffer you need to check the box. If it's not checked for you, you can check the box and automatically it will create a white buffer here, and you can increase or decrease the size from the size option, right, with the units. And also you have a color option. Let's say currently my background is of different color, so white is suiting me. Black text, right? So white is perfect, but let's say you want to reverse, you can make it black and you can change the color of the text as well. Okay, so that you can do from here. Change the color to white, right? And you can change the buffer color to black, something like this. So you see which is more suitable and which gives your text more highlight, that is more better. So buffer actually do this. You can set the opacity also, right? You have control for that as well. And then another important thing, callouts, we will cover that later, but the important thing is the placement, right? So if you see, my text is actually a little away from my symbol, the heart symbol and all. So generally it doesn't come that way by default. It must not be showing to you because I've already done those settings, right? So if you go to placement here and go to mode, you can select the rollout and you see for you it must be showing cartographic, right? And distance must be 0, something like this, right? So it is actually obstructing the symbol. So if you want more neat and clean text, very visible, you can go back to a round point, right? And make distance to 1, 2, something like that, right? If it's not enough, you can increase it to 5. This also is totally dependent on the scale which you are printing, right? So in this scale, if it's looking too far, you can just change it to 2 or 3, right? So accordingly, you can decide these things. So this becomes a very good option. Like instead of symbology, sometimes you can use labels, which becomes more effective in certain cases. For example, you're going to show a certain place in the map. So a place can't be pointed at one single location. So that will create a confusion. So instead of that, you can totally remove the point and totally remove the symbology. It can be any point, or in this case, it's in heart shape. So you can totally remove this, right? So this place cannot be at single location. So that creates confusion, right? So that times symbology doesn't work that better. Instead of that, you can remove the symbology totally and bring the labels there, right? So just this label can do the job. So this area or this place can be defined by a certain location, this, right? So it doesn't create confusion and maps is more readable. Let me show you what does it mean actually. So I'll go back to symbology, right? And I will keep the size to 0. And now you can see, you can easily recognize the place around it. So this defines that this area around it somewhere is known as Solindam. Okay. And if I go to labels again, and instead of around point, this time I will bring offset from point, right? And keep this quadrant. So this quadrant is actually defining the space. So it becomes the center of the area, right? Even if I want to rotate, I can use the rotation to change the arrangement of my text, or if you keep it 0, that's more better and readable, right? So these labels are actually defining the spaces, the place actually, the area, not the pinpoint location, which was the case previously when I'm using symbols, right? So that's the difference. So sometimes labels do a better job. So I will give you an exercise. You can set your scale to, let's say, 1:1 lakh, right? Something like this. And based on this scale, or you can choose any scale accordingly, and just see how labels, you can define the dimensions and different elements of the label to bring them, to make the map more readable and understandable, right? So you can play with them. Let's say, for example, for this scale, what should be the suitable size so it doesn't become too big or too small when you print the map in that particular scale. So you have to be very specific in choosing your sizes. So I'll give you a small hint, like let's say if you print this the text is getting more highlighted in that area, right? So you can reduce the size to, let's say, 8 and see what happens in that scale. Becomes more understandable, right? So likewise, you can decide, same way you can set the formatting, the masking, and all those elements which we have covered. Please play with it and try to arrange the map accordingly. So the next video, I'll be discussing about how can we label the roads, right? You can see currently the roads are not named, but if you go to the attribute table, these roads have different names associated with it, right? Like different street names. So we'll be bringing that label so that easily we can recognize the roads in the map in the same way we did for the places. And we'll see how can we, justify the label so that every road is easily recognizable and readable. And what are the different elements to take care of or make sure we don't do when we label the roads. So points, we did points and labels, points and symbols in this video, like that was a symbology. But when we labels road, we will be labeling the lines. So that's a little different from what we did in this video. So see you there and make sure you practice.